Hello and welcome to another session as part of commsHERO Week Day 1, and we're on session number 4 already. Today is just flying. So to take us into the lunch break, I'm delighted to welcome Sarah Waddington. You'll notice 3 little letters at the end of her name, invisible, CBE. So we're in awe and I'm honoured. So there's going to be a special announcement today, which Sarah's put out on Twitter, but if you haven't heard it, she's going to tell you about that. So I'm not going to steal her thunder. So there's loads of accolades and things that I can go through, but I'm going to, how are you, Sarah, today? First things first.
I'm good. We haven't got time for all that nonsense. We're here to talk about stuff that matters to your wonderful audience and everybody who's here today. And thanks very much for having me, by the way.
You're always welcome, and it's glad to have you. And we've got Sarah's one half of the commsHERO power couple with Stephen Waddington, who is appearing on commsHERO Week as well. So we're honoured to have you both on the lineup this year. And let's have some emoji love to welcome Sarah. Thank you, everyone. And
I'm loving the emojis.
Disappear. And we're going to hand over to Sarah, and I'll see you back. So don't forget, if you've got any questions, any comments, please drop them into the chat box. You're going to get points for doing that as well. So the leaderboard has changed hands a couple of times already. So you've got 4.5 days now to make sure you're at the top. So please drop in your comments and questions, and I'll be back at the end to pick those up, and we'll ask Sarah a few of those. Okay,
I'm loving how you're gaming the system there, as if it's brilliant.
Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you. And morning, everybody. And I'm going to tell you right up, I've got not just my dog, who's a well-behaved dog, but I've got my sister's puppy, Mabel, here, who is already mithering me below. So I'm going to apologise if the puppy stops play from time to time. But if you can hear weird things, that's what's going on, like right now. Get down, Mabel. So thank you very much for coming along. It's always a delight to be part of this. I'm just going to share with you my deck. There we go. And I'm going to talk to you about strategic planning and crisis preparedness. For those who don't know me, I'm Sarah Waddington. And one of the things I'm keen to do today is just look at the economic situation we find ourselves in and talk through a guide that Stephen and I have prepared. So that's what you're going to hear from me today. And basically, as I've said, I'm going to share the big news that I'm actually, as well as being a non-exec director in the wider business marketplace, I'm also becoming one half of Waddington. So Waddington is reincarnating as a family business. So that's quite exciting. And I'm delighted to be able to launch by being here with commsHERO, which is just a fantastic team led by Asif. So I don't know how many of you know me, but you may know me as the co-founder of Socially Mobile, which is our not-for-profit PR school, which helps people, particularly from lower socioeconomic backgrounds and underrepresented groups, to increase their earning potential. We're open to everybody, but we're particularly there to help those particular groups get a bit further in their careers. I'm also the founder and editor of the Future Proof community and books, and that's all about reasserting PR as a management discipline, which is really important that business knows exactly what we can deliver and how they should be employing us and contracting with us. In my actual day job, as I've just said, I'm a non-exec director. I'm an activist and communicator. And as I just said, now a director at Waddington. Let's see if I can move that along. So who are Waddington? Well, we deliver sustainable value and ethical growth for great people doing great things in the creative industry space. We really believe in our industry. We love the work that's done. We think there were some amazing people in there, and we really want to be part of that industry story as part of our legacy. So in terms of our vision, mission and values, we're here to be the advisors of choice for ambitious creative agencies and commerce teams who also, like us, believe in growth with social impact. We want to help them build future-proof, differentiated market propositions that exploit emerging opportunities and manage risk, and that embraces innovation and helps ride this economic volatility we're seeing at the moment. And we all know the importance of living our values, and our values are force for good, better together, performance with accountability and respect for all. And they reflect our belief that we as comms leaders have a singular opportunity right now. We are the pioneers. We are the change makers that can help organizations unlock growth in a way that allows society to prosper. So that's been a little bit behind the driving force for this particular report that we've launched today. Well, we're talking about strategic planning and crisis preparedness because we find ourselves in such a volatile and unpredictable world. And it's making it really hard for agency bosses and management teams and leaders to make decisions and build resilience. And we want to help prevent management paralysis, which can happen at times like this, and ensure that the industry can more than survive, but can actually thrive throughout this difficult period. You'll all be familiar with this. These are not new headlines for you. We see it literally breaking news every single day. We're in the middle of an economic crisis. We've got the effects of the pandemic. We're seeing the ongoing effects of the war in Ukraine. We're all struggling with rising energy prices, the climate crisis, and an overheated talent market, which is particularly affecting the comms industry. These are just some of the big issues that we're all facing. Now, of course, we've had the death of the Queen. We've had a change in leadership. We've now got Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng, and we're seeing an awful lot of change day in, day out with what their plans are, and then U-turns and fiscal situations, and then their own fiscal planning. So these are all things, again, that leaders have to take into consideration when they're making decisions day to day. And we know that we're moving into a recession, and that's a global recession, not just here in the UK, and that could go on for quite some time. And that's really interesting because when you take all that, we're also in a period of changing norms. There's radical uncertainty, and the norms that we live by day to day are being challenged all the time. And again, these are all things we need to factor in when we're looking at our businesses, looking at our teams, and wondering what's next. So it's a really important time to ask whether you're prepared. Are you prepared for 2023? Are you prepared in the way that you really need to be in terms of looking at risks, looking at opportunities, making sure you're making the right decisions up front? This business resilience piece is more critical than ever. And it might be time consuming and complex and quite frightening at times because it can feel overwhelming. But if you do the planning and you do it properly, it can provide important insight into the marketplace now and your future direction. Now, the good news is, if you're the person on the right, which I have been from time to time, we've done some of the work at Waddington, so you don't have to. And in this report that we published today, which is available free of charge, you don't even have to input your personal data to get it. We've undertaken a planning exercise, and we base it on our customer persona, which is basically a creative or professional services agency in the UK of SME size. Hopefully you'll find when you see it that a lot of the thinking pertains to you and you can use it, or at least it acts as a useful prompt so you can use it as a base for your own strategic planning. So what's in it? This is a report that looks at a number of different things. And what we've done is we've started with a PESTLE framework, and you'll all be familiar with that, I'm sure. But basically what this means is we've looked at the situation politically, economically, from a social basis, looking at it from a tech point of view, and also from a legal and environmental perspective. And what we've done is we've listed out the issues and scenarios that we think everybody should be thinking about right now. We've also considered capabilities of our target customer, the people that we work with already. So that kind of SME agency owner, and looked at market forces. So what is happening more widely out there. And what we've done is we've marked those things and we've given them 2 marks. And you'll see that we've looked at impact and certainty. And that modeling is really important because it helps identify the things that you need to be responding to right now, but also opportunities. So there will be weak signals within the market at any time, and you need to decide, is this going to be a risk? And if so, how do we mitigate this? Or is it a risk that could potentially turn into something like a positive opportunity? Or are there things out there that we haven't spotted before? Is there strategic space that we haven't yet moved into? And so we've started to look at those things. Now, what I would say is that it concludes with a series of actions that you can take now potentially to navigate the downturn, depending on where you are in your life cycle. But you will need to apply it to yourself and look at what is more relevant. And you perhaps want to swap things in and swap things out. I'm not going to run through the entire PESTLE because you can get that from the report and we don't have time today. But I will give you an indication of what to expect if you do want to get the report and have a good read through. And if you do want the report, you can go to wads.co.uk, and like I say, it's readily available there for free. You don't have to put any details in. You can literally just grab a copy and read it in your own free time with a cup of tea. Best way to do it. Or something harder if you wanted something harder, because actually there are some stiff bits of reading in there, but it's good because it keeps us keeps us thinking. So what's in it? Well, if you're a startup business, like I said, we've looked at where you might be in the life cycle, as well as given some more practical actions further down. But we've looked at what you should be thinking and doing if you're actually a startup. Well, good news is that if you're a startup, you already have a really great opportunity, because you can be a bit different and you have the chance to experiment, and you can fail fast and fail forward a little bit quicker than you might be able to if you were a more established business, say. So we say, embrace your distinction and make sure that you are well known. You use your position as a new industry player. And think about how you're differentiating. So you might decide that actually right now it would be smart to go in with a low-cost approach or a more focused specialist approach. These are things that you have readily available to you. Again, you don't have any legacy from being a bigger, older business. You are able to do things on a much more agile basis. So use that as an advantage. At the moment, everybody will be thinking about their budgets and their P&L and cash flow, and thinking about what's the most important things to do now to provide resilience for the future. Well, as a startup, you may have lower costs depending on the business model. What we're saying is make sure that you're researching what access to capital you've got, and that might be, you might be thinking, what do I put capital in myself as a shareholder? Or you might be thinking, do we go and get some loans so you increase your debt? You've got to remember, of course, you've got to pay that back on a regular basis, but you can get grants. There is capital out there. So have a look at what Government, Innovate UK and your local growth hubs are doing, because you'd be surprised at the sources of funding that are available. And then also, as a startup, make sure you're building out your networks and supply chains, and make sure that they're resilient, because that's the crucial thing. If you only deliver a particular service, but you want to have complementary services around you, build those relationships, find the right people, establish your value set, get those contracts in place, and make sure that that is really resilient, and you know that you can rely on it for the coming months. And then what we're saying is make sure that when you're at that point, exploit your launch advantage while you're looking ahead to future market opportunities, because no matter where you are in your journey, you should always be looking ahead to the next strategic horizon. So you're not just exploiting the marketplace as you stand right now, you're looking always to what's next, and maybe even what's next after that. So for established businesses, it's slightly different. Obviously, there will be some overlap, but for us, this is about repurposing. So looking at what you're spending money on within your business and your organization, and looking at where you're creating the most customer value. So what are they buying most? What do they like most about your service? What's the thing that gets you to sell more of what you're doing, or gets you more buy-in from your stakeholders? That's where you should be focusing your time and fixing anything that isn't working quite so well. So look at where you're spending your time and your energy and your money internally, and make sure you're repurposing it so it's working harder and more smarter for you. Again, like if you're a startup, look at your viability. What's your cash flow like? It's so important. I've recently written an interview with a finance director and author, Alistair Thompson, who's got a great book on cash flow. Make sure that your cash flow is looking strong, and if not, you take steps right now to address that. Look at your gearing, look at your access to capital, and make sure that you've got the weighted balance right, because that's absolutely crucial right now, and it could make a big difference to your cost going forward. I think a really interesting exercise to do from time to time, regardless of what the economic situation is doing, is to look at your existing target markets and see if they're still attractive and interesting to you. So, you might work a lot in the public sector. Do you need to rebalance some more and go into the private sector? Do you want to work more with the third sector? Which markets have you got skills in that you're not operating in right now? This is really important stuff in terms of, if you've got a team that's actually got loads and loads of green energy skills, are you targeting organizations in that arena? So just rethinking about who you're working with, who else you could target with the skills you've got and the team that you've got. And that helps you think about also strategic space. So what what are you doing day to day? What is your product? What's your area of differentiation? And are there any other products and services that you could be thinking about that you could bring in? And again, this is where your value networks and your supply chains are really important. Who you're working with that can help build your product and your service out. And it might well be that in this time, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens over the next 12 to 24 months. In the Northeast, which is mainly where I'm based, obviously split time between Newcastle and London, but in the Northeast, we've seen a couple of mergers already, and I'm pretty sure that we'll see more of that going forward. And then again, it's always important to be thinking, what's next? What are the business models, markets, and tech should be shaping our strategy? And often it's interesting to look outside of our industry to see what is happening elsewhere. I'll get my teeth put in a minute, but what else is happening? And are there any industries that are similar to ours that we can look to for inspiration and just to see what changes are taking place and how people are adapting? So mature businesses, these are ones on the life cycle which might be heading towards the end of their life cycle, to be honest, who might be a bit tired, might have been a cash cow for quite a long time, but and maybe struggling a little bit with all the legacy baggage that they've got compared to new entrants. So again, a really good time to revisit purpose, proposition, your services, and just decide what you're doing and looking ahead at where are you as a team? What do you want from the business? Have you got the value that you wanted? Have you realized that value? Is your proposition still pertinent to your customers, or is it a little bit tired and needs a refresh? What is out there that you can use to relaunch, as it were? And should diversification be an option? Often if you do something really well over the years, it can be very easy not to look outside of that because you're doing well and it's working for everyone. But it does mean that if something comes in to disrupt the market, you can be left behind very quickly. And at times like that, that could be a very dangerous position and vulnerable position to be in. So of course, the other option there is if you've got the end of your shelf life, as it were, for want of a better expression, think about what's next. Is there an opportunity for a market exit? Is there someone who might want to acquire you right now? Is it time to close the business? And of course, we do have portfolio businesses out there. We have holding companies, and we have some really big ones, to some smaller ones that have sprung up more recently, which is great to see. And of course, with that, if you're managing a number of different organizations, the key is to revisit that portfolio and look at how each of the businesses is contributing, how well is it performing, and make sure that you're providing support in the right way to each of those ones. Because again, if you're quite hands-off, it can be very easy just to let people get on with running their business. But sometimes if you don't stage an intervention at the right time, it can be too late. So make sure you're on top of that, offering regular support, even if you decide that you do have a more hands-off way of running that business. Again, about repurposing. Where is the money being spent? Where's the time being spent? What's the customer value you're generating? How can you improve that? Particularly at this point where it will get more competitive out there as finance gets harder for people in the coming months. Consider again what you're doing in terms of what is the portfolio looking like? What strategic space can you possibly move into? Is there something else? And is there another business? Is there another type of agency that could sit alongside the sister businesses? Who else is out there? And this is the perfect, your portfolio business, you're in the perfect place often to look at mergers and acquisitions if you can raise that finance. And, look at if you have got ones who aren't doing so well, or you don't fit the portfolio so well anymore. Obviously, there's always the option for divestments, spin outs. Are obviously quite a nice opportunity if you've got teams that if you don't want to get rid of because actually you think they're performing really well but need to go off and do their own thing. Spin out is a great way of achieving that. And of course, back to mergers and acquisitions as an opportunity. So what else can be done? In the strategic planning and crisis preparedness report, and based on the current economic situation and the PESEL that we carried out, we have recommended some actions that can be taken right now in relation to day-to-day business. And we've grouped them under 3 headers. You've got employment in an office. So what can you be doing in terms of thinking about your talent? What about the general day-to-day office tasks and the running of that. We've looked at economic policy and public affairs. So what are the opportunities there that you can take? And we've looked at, crucially, client engagement and new business development. Now, often people rush to new business development. We're not saying not to do that, but we're saying to be very focused on that and to remember that often you can grow your business much more quickly and effectively by growing the clients that you have on the books already. So we talk about that within the report too. So if you do want the copy of the report, like I say, head to wads.co.uk. You're very welcome to download it. Like I say, use it for your own purposes. We're here to help. So do let me know if you have any questions. And if you'd like to know more, download the report and let me know how you find it. You'll definitely have your own issues, scenarios, actions to add. And I'm really keen to hear what those are. And fingers crossed, I would love to hear whether this has helped with your planning. So that's me talking about today's deck and here for questions. So thank you very much for listening.
Fabulous. Thank you very much. Let's have a... I'm back again.
Back again.
A fantastic session. Stephen had posted the link to the report as well, so that's in the chat for everybody. So get
that's handy.
It's always good to have an assistant on hand, isn't it, Sarah?
He's a very glamorous assistant, a bit like Debbie McGee for those who get the reference.
So there's I'll pick up a question at the moment. There's the link itself. And there's a conversation of comments that have kicked in about the Ducks poster. Ed Thomas kicked that off asking, where can I buy it? And then
I'll find the link for that. I love that picture.
Etsy, it's all right. The commsHERO community have already done it. Yeah, so they've dropped. It is on Etsy apparently. So you found it there, and Sarah will share a link.
That's my favourite picture. It's a favourite part of that entire deck, to be honest.
It's the one that got a lot of comments. So let's pick up a question from Sarah Wilcox, all the way from Tasmania. So I don't know what time it is there, but it's very early in the morning.
I'm impressed with their dedication. And Mabel says hi.
There we go. You see, it's just that's what we're here for. So Sarah, have you ever had any tension between your activism self and your career stroke work self, or a gig you were a gig you were working on? If so, how did you manage it?
Okay, yeah. So this can happen quite a lot. So I think people would recognize that I'm quite mouthy on Twitter, particularly. I tend to be a little bit more business-like on LinkedIn, but obviously I'm a bit more vocal on Twitter. The difficulty with that is if you are working with particular organizations, which, for example, might be apolitical, that can be really, really challenging. So what's interesting is that I used to find that more difficult. What has become more easy is that as I moved more into kind of slightly more activist space and was more vocal on stuff, I noticed that I was working with clients who were more aligned with my values, and as long as there's certain lines you don't cross, are quite happy to. And obviously you keep a strong line between the work that you do with those clients and yourself, that they're quite happy with that. And actually what's really interesting about it, I found that clients were pre-qualifying me. So they were like, I'm happy to work with her on that. So really great example of that was when I went globally viral for my...
Sorry about that.
Did you lose me? Am I back?
You're back, yeah. It might be me, but go, keep going.
But so when I went viral right across the world for my views on fairy tales, which were misrepresented, by the way, but I stand by what I meant at the time. But what was really interesting, I kind of thought at the time that would be the end of my business. There's a little message from Lee there. But actually, do you know, it wasn't. It was quite the opposite. People said, I like what you're saying. I like your stance. I want to work with you. And we need someone who can also help speak truth to power and can do that in a constructive way. So I found that actually the activist stuff, get rid of that puppy again, is actually quite good, because it means that you end up having conversations with people who might be like-minded, who might not be able to share those views, but perhaps we're pulling in the same direction. I hope that answers the question.
It's 10 p.m. in Tasmania, by the way, Sarah. Thank you for confirming that for us. Just pick up before I go into another question. Jules Loveland, brilliant session.
Thank you, Jules.
Lots of love there. So we've got one from Ed Thomas here. Amazing insight, Sarah. Thank you. When you're repurposing, do you start with things to start first or things to stop?
Oh, that's a really, really great question. It's a bit like when you're giving feedback. I think the question is, it's always about like, a really nice way of giving feedback to people in a 360 is, what should I continue doing? What should I stop doing? What should I start doing? And I think you just need to look at all three together. You can't do one without doing the other, in my view. But there's a lot to do with, so as much as stopping as starting stuff or continuing. And that's great if you're in a position where you're looking, thinking, you know what, we're in a decent position here, we've done this planning and it's looking good. That's brilliant. You just continue going and you consolidate, and then you look for the next areas of growth. But certainly stopping doing some stuff can be really beneficial. A great example of that to do with cash flow is if you wait till the end of the month every single month to do all your billing. Don't do that, because you every single time you finish a project, if you've got projects in, bill at that point, because if you've got 30-day terms on, that money will come into your bank, you know, whatever say it's the 14th of the month, you're going to get an extra 2 weeks than if you'd billed at the end of the month, if that makes sense. So often there are things you should stop doing, or just change your behavior slightly. But I think that's a great question.
Well, some really good insight, and I think that's picked up all the comments. I'll just check if there's anything further. Sarah Dakin, that makes complete sense. I don't want to keep quiet and not to be one of the people speaking up right now. And if that stopped me getting a job for a company, I wouldn't want to work there. So
exactly that. And it is about value congruence, that because actually if people, it's the same as when you have an engaged workforce. It's the same with clients. You know, like people go to work for an organization because they believe in the leadership, they believe in the values of the business, particularly if they're actually living them, they're not just saying them. So that's really, really important. I think if you are a leader with a particular interest in a particular area, and people see that you living that, and it's not just on a very, what's the word I'm looking for, superficial level, that they'll come with you on that ride, and often they will help you. You know, I've had lots of clients who, like I say, are apolitical and make introductions for me, support Socially Mobile, for example, our CIC, and that comes with them knowing exactly what I stand for.
Fantastic. Sarah, it's been an absolute pleasure. So another round of applause, emojis, hearts, whatever you wish. I'm going to give you a quick recap on the leaderboard so far as we finish our first morning of commsHERO week. So Emma Elston way out in the lead with 1,135 points.
Wow.
Thomas second with 585. You've got some work to do, Ed. Elizabeth Hallum 550. Andrew Gledhill 545. So there's a little battle there for the third place prize. Damien Vizard 525. Annie Cooper 445, Sarah Dakin 425, Jules Loveland 420, and Lauren Woodward 420. So that's the top 10. Still plenty of time. You've got the whole week to get involved. Remember, it's getting involved in the sessions, networking tables, questions, comments, replies. So the more stuff you do in the platform, the more you will get rack up those points. So Sarah, it's been an absolute pleasure and an amazing announcement. Congratulations on the announcement with Wads Inc. And it'll be a fantastic success, as it already has been. And with you both together, it'll be an unstoppable force. So thank you so much. And I'm sure there'll be loads more connections you'll be getting from here, and people wanting to chat to you more as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Really enjoyed it. Thank you very much.